So how can we then expect that we're not operating in a competitive environment? And as a result, if you're not evolving, how do you differentiate yourself? Even if you was to argue that those that are in our space maybe goes from 160,000 to even 2,000, that's still 2,000 that you're having to go about trying to differentiate from. Like that.
So, how could we make these programs more accessible? How could we get them to connect with our mentors easier without forcing them to just, attend these in-person sessions? So it's kind of evolved to that way. And as I mentioned, we realized, okay, well, we can actually reach a whole lot more students around London, but also potentially now around the UK.
You said at the very start the importance of collaboration and how when you first started at One Degree in 2014, you were compelled to bring together that 20 or so charities to say, what would it look like if we worked collectively?
I'm joined today by Lewis, a One Degree trustee, and I'm Roger, One Degree CEO. And we kind of set up this conversation, and I wanted to have Lewis and myself to get a real sense of where One Degree has been, where we are right now, where we'd like to go, and just have a bit of a chat about some of the pros and cons of decisions that charities make across the board, and some of these tough decisions we make to impact the amazing young people that we want to work with. So hey, Lewis, thanks so much for joining. How are you doing?
I'm great, and thank you for having me, Roger. And as you said, a very, very needed conversation, and I'm hoping it'll be one that everybody who does get a chance to hear this conversation or follow this conversation will enjoy. So yeah, grateful to be a part of it. If you don't mind, Roger, I'm going to actually just pose a question to you from the very start, because actually when I think about the dates, we're talking 10 years now since you joined One Degree, right? So I appreciate that One Degree has been around for 15 years. There was 5 years prior to yourself. But in your opinion, like, where was One Degree at when you started, and what has been the goal even since then?
Yeah, I mean, a great starting point. So yeah, One Degree started in 2009, very small niche charity working in pockets of Brent in North London. And in those 5 years before I started, it ran really well and really effectively, but it was a bit more of a casual operation. And when I came on board in 2014, the idea was, could we professionalize it? Could we expand it? Could we reach to more parts of London? What new sort of innovations could we bring into that? And that's what we've been working on for the last 10 years. And it's been a hell of a ride. And I can't believe it's been 10 years, but I guess it's those 800 plus students that have just made it so special up till now.
I mean, I know this is about mentoring, but in the world of football, I'm sure if someone's at a football club for 10 years, they get a testimonial. So, do you know what I mean? It means we have to hold you in high regard, Roger. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, your legacy's definitely been felt, so we appreciate it. So, I mean, obviously in that 10 years, you'd have seen a lot of evolution, not only within One Degree, but actually within youth mentoring charities more broadly. And that would obviously also include the ones that are London-based. So what are some of the things that you've kind of chosen to implement into One Degree's programming as part of the evolution of these kinds of mentoring programs that you think have needed to evolve over that 10-year period?
Well, when I started, I one of the first things I did was get together a group of 20 similar charities around London that were doing the same kind of work with young people. And I was very, very keen on the aspect that I don't think charities can operate in a silo. I don't think they can do everything alone. I don't think they should say that they can do everything alone. We need to work together. And especially when things like funding is so difficult, if you as a charity say, we're working with this charity and this charity to create this holistic approach, it does create such a much more meaningful sell. So in speaking to these sort of 20 odd charities that work with young people around London, I got a bit of a sense of what was working, what was not working, what are some of the changes that need to come into place. And at the same time, I started having these conversations with the schools that we were working with. And at that time, in 2014, 2015, 2016, obviously mentoring was around and interventions were around and soft skills were available for teaching in schools. But it wasn't the priority. It wasn't really deeply embedded in the sort of school architecture. And now, when you jump sort of 10 years later, it's much more of an apparent thing in schools. So schools have definitely changed. They've definitely embraced the kind of how important it is to have separate mentoring, not in-house mentoring or separate tutoring. to focus on critical thinking, to focus on some of those core skills which have now transitioned from soft skills to 21st century skills. And these things are becoming much more apparent. And at the same time, in those 10 years, more charities have come about, and more have started to realize that more things need to be done in their communities. So this enables more collaboration, but obviously in sometimes more competition. Yeah, I mean, even charities have competition to kind of, fight for their worth and stuff like that. And because not all charities do necessarily work with each other as effectively as they could. So yeah, a tremendous amount of change, as I said, as you can gather from that, some positive, some challenging. But I'd say the thing that really stands out is the school environment has changed. And for that reason, charities like One Degree have to change as well, because the need for One Degree is still there, but that specific demand has changed slightly, I would say, in the last 10 years.
We definitely have to acknowledge that, and I appreciate you sharing that. I mean, I never forget, and I don't know if I tell you this often enough, or if I have even told you, but I remember one of the meetings that we had. It wasn't a trustee meeting. I'm trying to remember the context. I remember exactly where we were in terms of setting, but you shared something on a slide once that I think spoke to the context to which we're operating in, and the very real nature of the fact that, if we're talking about it from the standpoint of being able to access beneficiaries or even access funding, you put a statistic on the board once that was like, and you could correct me if I'm wrong here if you remember the statistic, but there's like 160,000 plus charities in this country, right? So yes, we appreciate not all of that 160,000 are youth mentoring charities, but full stop, what that goes to show is there are so many different charities that are vying for what we would assume is somewhat limited resource. So how can we then expect that we're not operating in a competitive environment? And as a result, if you're not evolving, how do you differentiate yourself? Even if you was to argue that those that are in our space maybe goes from 160,000 to even 2,000, that's still 2,000 that you're having to go about trying to differentiate from. Like, that's a lot of organizations, right? So yeah, so important for us to continuously evolve. Like, it's absolutely critical. And I'm glad to hear that you mentioned, that need to think about the kinds of skills that young people are developing on the One Degree program, because that's the truth. We're not allowing the young people themselves to evolve kind of experience that they have when they are a part of the One Degree program. Then are we really preparing them for a world of success, a professional career where they can be successful, for ongoing in their educational experience where they can continue to thrive and make progress?
No, exactly, and that stat you mentioned was, spot on, and that sort of fluctuates throughout the years. It's always kind of remained pretty much around there, meaning that, for every 2 charities that dissolve, 2 charities kind of are created. So it has kind of stuck around that all the time. And of those 167,000 charities registered in the UK, there's 10,000 that are the foundations and the trusts and all that, where those 167,000 have to then predominantly get their funds from. So you can see it is tough. And I mean, I always ask myself, like, are we better off with a charity like One Degree? Or I suppose more pertinently, what would a world look like without a charity like One Degree, or without some of these amazing charities that we have around? Because charities have come about because of a need that communities or society has, or something that's deficient in a certain way. And the interesting thing about One Degree, and specifically what we do in not just education but working with young people, is that for the first time now, and done a bit of research on this, but you can correct me if I'm wrong, but at the first time now, it seems like young people are the most influential age group. Those 16 to 24-year-olds are dictating things so much more now, and they got such a powerful voice. And this could be because of technology or social media or whatever. So if you've got 16 to 24-year-olds who are the most influential age group, and 900,000 of them are not in education, employment, and training, in the UK, which is the current 12% NEET stat, then I mean that's creating quite an interesting narrative straight away, isn't it?
Immediately, do you know what I mean? Because and this is why I think I go back to what you mentioned earlier about the importance of evolving the program to account for these new skills like helping these young people to understand the importance of collaboration and how they communicate, and being creative, which obviously aligns with their use, for example, of social media and other platforms, but also their ability to think critically. That's what stands out most to me. If we want to develop a generation of young people who can be influential in our society and who can be influential in their particular career pathways, their ability to think critically about what currently exists within an industry, within a sector, within our society is critical. So that's why I'm so glad that One Degree is trying to prevent that 900,000 who end up not in employment, education or training as it currently stands from being the case. But let's talk a bit more about some of the other successes that One Degree has had in terms of being able to run programs year on year. What does the impact look like?
Yeah. So, I mean, we've always been a small charity, so we've never reached a massive amount of students, but the ones we have reached, we've made a tremendous impact. So 823 students in 15 years. It doesn't sound like a lot, but the success rate of those 823 has been amazing. So 71% pass rates, and that's a 30 to 40 increase in grades that they had when they were coming into the program, which is amazing straight off. Tremendous increases in positive futures, things like their outlook and what they think they can achieve, after One Degree, going to A levels, university, beyond. Amazing increases in self-esteem and self-confidence, and just a general better outlook on where they're at and where they're going. And that has the real knock-on effect. I mean, we've always been about academics and always been about trying to get them through maths and English, and we've had a tremendous success in getting them to pass their English and maths, exams. But it's the self-esteem and confidence that has that knock-on effect. So to not have them thinking that they are going down this predetermined path, that they can control it, that they can start to manufacture their own destinies, that they can change the narrative, that they can, speak up for themselves and really have a exciting, beneficial future. I think that's that message that really just warms my heart every program, to see them see that opportunity. And this is made possible because of the incredible mentors that we have all volunteers, and they professionals from throughout London and throughout the world that just sharing their story and saying, look, we're not all going down the same pathway. We're gonna have different speeds at which we achieve things, and you don't have to be married by 25, and you don't have to have a house by 30, and you don't, all these kind of things. Everyone is different, and it's just, it's some of these really important messages that are all embedded in between learning about trigonometry or learning about Macbeth and stuff like that.
No, of course. I mean, but let's call a spade, Roger. Like, if that's the case, and we're making all of this amazing impact, which I can obviously advocate for and champion, having had the opportunity on multiple occasions to directly engage with the young people that are on the programs, the question then becomes like, so why have we maybe never expanded beyond 60 students a year?
I mean, it's the question we keep asking myself, and we asking each other, and we have asked, and we have tried to expand. There's been times we run multiple programs at the same time, multiple schools, multiple programs, multiple locations, and one of the things in charities, and this is quite common across the board, that is so hard, is to get a good workforce in a charity that are getting good salaries and getting looked after well is so hard, because the charity sector does notoriously, obviously, not pay as well as the private sector or even the public sector, and so it's hard to replicate the kind of success we have exactly the same way in a lot of different places. And when we've tried, we've seen that one program will do so much better than another program, and this could just because we end up spreading ourselves too thin. So what we started doing, it would have been 2018, was we started exploring with the online mentoring side of things and how this would look, how this could complement what we were already doing. We were running programs on weekends, mainly Saturdays, but we were noticing that, throughout a 20-session program, there might be, every student would miss at least one session, and more than likely, probably about 3 sessions were missed per student per program. And this could be for a whole host of reasons, not necessarily because they wanted to miss the session. And we created this online platform initially to give them a way to catch up, give them a way to go and rewatch stuff, catch up on any lessons. And we started recording some of our lessons in our program so they could actually go and watch, the replay of the live stream. And then they could start to connect with mentors online and have a sort of a catch-up mentoring session. And then COVID hit, and obviously we had to use this online platform, and we were so well placed already because we had built this platform, a custom built platform, really innovative platform that I hadn't really seen much around, and this platform evolved to be a combination of like a youth LinkedIn with e-learning courses with a kind of Google Classrooms, but in our own platform, all safeguarded, all protected and stuff. So mentors and students could have a safe space. COVID hits, and we had to operate within these boundaries. And then COVID finished, and I sort of we started chatting. You and I started chatting, and trustees and mentors and volunteers, we all started chatting. We said, I think we can do so much more with this platform than we probably thought we could. And maybe we should be looking at reaching a lot more students who can't necessarily make those in-person sessions, or there are too many boundaries for them making those in-person sessions. Now, for those of you listening that don't know what some of these boundaries might be, One Degree's always been a London charity, and our programs could only really be operated out of certain spots in London. And this would mean then there could be travel distances for students. There could be reasons why they couldn't make that session. Those students could have to suddenly babysit their younger brothers or sisters on a weekend, which is so often the case. So, how could we make these programs more accessible? How could we get them to connect with our mentors easier without forcing them to just, attend these in-person sessions? So it's kind of evolved to that way. And as I mentioned, we realized, okay, well, we can actually reach a whole lot more students around London, but also potentially now around the UK. In a much easier way, and yeah, I think that's where it starts to get exciting, because we've always worried about the amount of students we were reaching, albeit a great amount of impact, but were we reaching enough students? And there's the school of thought that even if we reach one student, that'd be great, and of course it is. But we keep mentioning that 900,000 stats. We need to be reaching as many of those 900,000 as possible. So I guess that's where we've got to sort of now.
Clearly, and I think again, I was going to say foresight, but maybe in 2018, that it wasn't necessarily something where you started to develop this online platform, Roger, with the foresight of knowing that we were going to have a pandemic, or even with the foresight of thinking that this could become almost like the priority offering, so to speak. Like maybe you always saw it as complementary to the original program, but to think that we're at a point now where actually this can be positioned as almost like the core offering, which some people who are traditionalists may argue with, right? And understandably so. They might be sitting there going, but young people do so much online already, or like, how can you guarantee the same impact? Or, how do you know that the students will even show up online? First of all, you have the experience over the last five or so years of using a platform to see what kind of engagement young people are actually giving to it. And I know that some of the sessions I've done have been online, and the young people have been there. So that goes to show that they do turn up even when it's online. But yeah, how would you respond to that if someone was to question along the lines of like, how can you ensure that the impact will be the same? Or, why do this when young people already, some would argue, have a bit of like digital fatigue, stuff like that?
Yeah, 100%. I suppose let's be realistic. If we were to take 50 students and put them in a 1 Degree in-person program versus 50 students and have them at an online program, the 50 students in the online program, on the in-person program, would do so much better, and they'd get so much more out of it, and they'd be connecting, in person with these mentors, and it would be an amazing experience for them. But if we were to take 5 times 50 students and spread them around London in 5 different locations and do 5 different in-person programs, that versus 250 students online, the 250 students online would have much more impact. And the reason is, as I mentioned before, spreading ourselves too thin, all of a sudden, it does make it harder. The McDonald's theory, it does make it harder to keep consistency across every single franchise, so to speak. And there was something that really stuck with me. One of our maths teachers said in the past, said that she would rather do things 100% the way they should be with, X amount of students, than do them slightly off center and head them slightly down the wrong direction with those same students, meaning that, over a period of time, that direction of going slightly not in the right direction would lead to quite a big change. And this has its positive and negative, and that's where the 1 degree came from, the name 1 degree of change. Those small steps in a positive direction can make a massively positive impact, but small degrees of change in a negative direction obviously can have the same but opposing effects and have a really negative impact. So what you were saying is that if you're going to do something, you've got to do it right. And young people are so, they're really like sponges when they really start to get into something and draw in some of this information and some of the mentoring and some of the stuff that they're learning and stuff like that. So you want to do it right. And we can do that right on a small scale in person, and we can do that just as right on a large scale online, but we can't do it yet right on a large scale in person. So until funding allows us to do, many in-person programs, the best and the most effective way is definitely online. But just, I suppose, back to your original point, online fatigue, 100%. It means that we have to constantly improve, means we have to constantly innovate. We have to make things enjoyable online, make it worthwhile for the students to meet there. And over the last 6 years of experimentation, what we've realized now is one of the ways to not only guarantee they turn up, but guarantee they get most amount of impact is in the online space. We've moved away from online group lessons to online one-on-one lessons. And we found that small group lessons in person work so well because everyone's feeding off each other and they can chat and they can brainstorm. And the mentors can kind of work around that small group. As soon as you do that in online capacity, it's so much harder because everyone's then coming in from their different environments and they've got different challenges in the online space and stuff like that. So we've now moved to the online, the one-on-one online side of things. So each time that student spends with their mentor is exactly what that mentor wants to do with that student wants to do with that mentor. And you can really tailor it. And this is why we can keep it personalized in the same way, we want to with in-person programs. And we can now do that on scale online. And the other way we can make this work and make it more beneficial is it's not just going to be at a certain time every day or every week. We've now opened up this amazing calendar system where students can book a mentor slot 7 days a week. And this could be afternoon, evenings, it could be 9 o'clock in the evening, it could be 3 o'clock in the afternoon, it could be Sunday morning, whatever they want. And mentors can then submit their availability, and the system matches the student up with the mentor that's going to best suit them, or the student can select a mentor because they've worked with that mentor already, or they like the career that mentor's in and they want to have those conversations beyond academics and stuff like that. So yeah, I would say that's the experimentation we've done, and it's led to that point. And in 2024, we've run it that way, and it's worked so well.
This is brilliant. I mean, you actually started to go into the next thing I wanted to ask you about, which was about maybe a bit more about the features and functions of the platform, because you spoke about the benefit of one-to-one mentoring. You spoke about the feature, which is the calendar booking system. Is there anything else you want to mention that sort of helps to create the best possible experience that we can currently offer in terms of use of the platform? I mean, as somebody who's got an account on there, I've seen the way in which someone can go through to be able to find very specific pieces of academic content that will support them with their academic progression. I've also seen, obviously, the way in which they can view the different mentors that are available and then seek to book time with them. But yeah, is there anything in specific that you want to talk about in terms of the platform's features or functions that's worth mentioning, and the benefits that those features and functions have?
Yeah, I mean, there's four main areas on the platform. One is, as I mentioned, the one-on-one kind of booking system. Students can book mentors, at the time that's convenient for them, and it can be one-on-one. We still try to replicate the in-person sessions. So we've still got live stream lessons. We've still got lessons that, will happen at certain times every week that students can tune into. Watch those lessons. Watch a teacher going through a topic or a subject. And then after that, move into a breakout room, and the students can chat amongst themselves. Teacher or mentors can then meet and have a chat with, in a bit of a group environment. So you've still got that group aspect, but the focus is obviously still at one-on-one, because that's where you're going to get, start to progress much faster. Then you've got the e-learning side of things. So the on-demand, students can go on any time and they can go and learn about algebra, or go and learn about persuasive writing, and not just that, they can now go into personal development sort of topics and do some e-learning online courses. They can see some chats from past students that are telling about where they are right now. They can see some interviews with mentors, and that's growing all the time. So that can become our own sort of resource library for stuff students can access at any time. And then finally, the kind of mentor student network side of things, so like the youth LinkedIn that I mentioned. So mentors can connect with mentors, students can connect with students connect with mentors, and in a sort of a typical way where you can go and look at someone's profile and go and see what job they do, what some of their interests are and stuff like that, and then have a chat with them and maybe potentially book a mentor session with them. So I would say those are the main areas, and within those, always trying to constantly improve that. But the thing that I'm most proud of is that everything is self-contained in this online platform, and it's all been custom built by us. And we've done everything so that the students aren't going to get thrown out of the site to go elsewhere. Everything's in there. We're working with some really good startup organizations that can create really good calendar systems for us, really good live streaming, really good video calls. So we're not using the usual names that people might be useful, which, to be honest, things are progressing so much faster, and there's so much more engaging ways to do things out there. So yeah, this is all within the system. But I'm saying this now to you, in a year's time, in 2 years' time, what's the bet? This is all going to have to be, improved and constantly improved each time, because, oh my God, things are moving so quickly in the world of tech and AI and all of that.
I mean, you just mentioned there at the end, things are moving quickly. Things are going to consistently have to evolve. Things are going to consistently have to get better. That requires resources, Roger, let's be honest. So you've mentioned earlier in the conversation trusts, foundations, how they are often a source for charities like One Degree to see if we can access the financial resource needed. But of course, we might have to think about the role that corporate partners might be able to play. So in your opinion, now, what is the importance of corporate partnerships when it comes to the kinds of activities and interventions that are being put in place by charities like One Degree?
Yeah, I mean, trusts and foundations have been the core of keeping charities alive, for as long as charities have been around. That kind of giving is so important. But I think for One Degree, there's a really good opportunity here right now, and that word opportunity is amazing, because that word opportunity is what One Degree is all about. We're giving opportunity to young people.
Exactly.
We want to now give opportunity to CSR, to corporates and stuff like that. We think there's an amazing opportunity for corporates to get involved in what we're doing right now, because we're not just remaining a London charity. We want to go throughout the UK, and that's a fantastic opportunity for corporates to create impact all around the UK. Different communities, different struggling communities that aren't just based in London, and start to invest in this, as you said, this constantly growing, constantly needing for innovation platform. And yeah, it's much cheaper than One Degree doing stuff in person, but it still obviously costs. And probably worth mentioning that running in-person sessions would cost on average £1,000 per student per program to go through One Degree in-person program. Now, if we're going online, that's a tenth of the cost. So that costs £100 per student program. So that's an amazing difference. Now, as I mentioned, we're not going to get the exact same impact as we would for in person, but we can reach a hell of a lot more students, and with that make obviously so much more impact. And the challenge that we've got is we want to reach double the amount of students that we've reached in the last 15 years, and we want to do that in the next 2 years. And that is so possible with the right kind of corporate partners. And so yeah, we're looking for corporate partners out there who want to join us on this journey. The next couple of years, invest in the platform, invest in our track record, but in our future as well. And yeah, I guess just help us take it to the next level.
Yeah, this has been fascinating, because actually that figure there, in terms of it actually can be delivered to these young people for a tenth of what it would normally cost. And I wouldn't even necessarily say that the impact is lessened when they go online. I think, as you've explained so well today, Roger, it's just that the impact is different. I think that bit around being able to select the time to which you want to speak one-to-one with a mentor that you have identified as being able to add value specifically to what it is that you want to do, where you want to go, what you want to learn, etc. That in itself is powerful. And so it just means that the impact is slightly different versus lessened. And I know, yes, we'd all love to see it delivered in person, but the truth of the matter is, if you can allow more if you take the comparable, of 250 doing it online with the model that's used currently versus 250 doing it online, then actually, if you can go online and make a similar impact number for number, and it's going to cost 10% of the amount, why would you not explore that? So yeah, I completely agree. I think, yes, the trusts and foundations, we want them to engage, but also those potential corporate partners, please understand what you'd be getting behind, what you'd be supporting, what you'd be investing in, and the return on investment it provides for society, as well as potentially their own organizations when they end up being able to choose from a talent pool of young people who, as you said before, are 16 to 24 years old, and at some point prior to that 16 to 24 age bracket went through the 1 degree program and have become somebody who could now add massive value to an organization. So yeah, it's huge. So I mean, just to kind of then bring it to a close to some extent, Roger, what if we look ahead, what's next, so to speak, for 1 degree?
Just quickly, I wanted to touch on, you mentioned return on investment, and actually it reminded me, another incredible stat. We've spoken about £1,000, we've spoken about £100, but the cost of someone being not in education, employment, or training, and we spoke about NEET and all that, is £104,000, and that's the cost to the economy, and that's the cost to the taxpayer. And if we're taking that figure off the table for the equivalent of £100 program, I mean that what are we doing here? Where's the maths in that? Here? You know what I mean? It's even if it was £50,000, it costs to do the program, would still be value for money. But for £100, I mean, you can't really argue with that. It's win-win all around. But yeah. So next steps from here, we're going into the period now, the next couple of years, where we're starting to reach out to more communities around the UK. And with that, if we can get corporate partners that have interest in certain communities or certain parts, they might have a footprint in certain parts around the UK that, they'd love to see impact in their neighborhoods and in where they're working, then they must get in touch, because we can prioritize certain areas depending on obviously where we're getting the funding from. And yeah, as you say, let's be real, if we're getting funding from a business that's got operations in Newcastle and Birmingham, then we'll be working in London, Newcastle, and Birmingham. You know what I mean? So it's really a call out to corporates, but not just them, to philanthropists, to donors who really want to see that tremendous return of investment, be a part of something amazing that's going to make a great bit of impact, but also join us on this journey. And it's something that there isn't anything like this out there. There's online platforms, there's mentoring, there's online mentoring out there, but there's nothing quite like the way we're doing it and the manner in which we've built this platform. It really isn't around right there. It's really right now, it really is unique. And I think, I just genuinely believe this is an incredible opportunity for people to get involved, individuals and especially corporates. And let's make some incredible impact together in the next few years.
Definitely, let's do it together. I think that is the perfect way to bring this to a close, Roger, because you said at the very start the importance of collaboration, and how when you first started at 1 Degree in 2014, you were compelled to bring together that 20 or so charities to say, what would it look like if we worked collectively? Well, now you're not even limited necessarily to just working with, for example, back then 20 or so charities, but saying, actually, if there is an organization and schools and community-based organizations, corporates, who can see the value in young people being able to have access to mentors that can support them with their personal development and self-improvement, preparation for the professional world, but all done within the context of them being able to move forwards academically. Any person who has an interest in any of that and believes that is important for the success of those young people's livelihoods and our society, have to get in touch. Like, have to. Do you know what I mean? Because we're living in a time now where, you know, so many people can see the flaws in the systems that currently exist in our society, and so many of us get frustrated by it, and rightly so. But we must be as passionate about the solutions as we are about the frustrations of what we think is wrong. So here is an opportunity for those people to support something meaningful that has a track record of always delivering improvements. So yeah, Roger, I'm glad we were able to have the conversation, man. I'm glad you were able to share some of the amazing things that have been being done and will continue to be done. I'm really grateful to have been a part of it.
Definitely. No, thanks so much for this chat, Lewis. It's been great, and yeah, I appreciate all your time and efforts into the charity over the years, and your advice. And yeah, looking forward to the next chapter.
Next chapter, man. Much love, much love.
Take care.